Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So today it is time to wrap up my August reading. Of course, Cat has to choose now to eat, so sorry if you can hear that in the background, but we're going to make this quick because I did not read very much in August. So it was kind of a rough month, but let me just dive right in and we'll get through this pretty quickly. So I finished 5 books in August, and I think that was really just because I was coming off of months worth of readathons where I was really cramming in a lot of books. So, yeah, this one I finished 5 books, and actually DNF'd one. So I will talk about that, I guess. There's not much to say. But yes, so that was a total of 1,983 pages. And I didn't really, other than the reread, I didn't really care that much for what I read. Everything was pretty bland at about 3.4 stars total average. So, what did I read this month? The first book that I finished in August was Headlines by Ella Frank. This is the third book in the trilogy of the Primetime series, and these books are pretty short. They're 200 to 250 pages, and this is the third book in the trilogy, so we are finally finishing the story between the main two characters. I don't want to go too much into the plot of things, but we have the series starts off with Xander, a celebrity primetime newscaster dude who is being stalked and is sort of needing some security, and so he arranges for his best friend's brother Sean to be that security detail, and Xander is out and gay and happy about that, and Sean has ostensibly always thought himself straight, and then the two of them, when working together, start to develop feelings, and then in book 2 those feelings deepen and their connection deepens, and they start to explore, what it means to be in a relationship. And this Headlines book is book 3, where they kind of have to resolve a lot of tension in the relationship and resolve the conflicts that have come up because of them being in a relationship together. So it was perfectly fine resolution to the trilogy. I thought it was fine. I thought the emotional development overall was really fast. I felt like book 2 really helped to emphasize why these two like each other and showed how they were spending time together. So I appreciated that. I personally found a lot of the main conflict for book 3 to be very obnoxious. It's not a trope that I love, and I talk about that in my last vlog, where I kind of covered the last couple of days of July and the first few days of August, which I will link up into the cards if you want a little bit more detail. But yeah, that was Headlines by Ella Frank, contemporary male romance trilogy. The next book that I finished was actually also discussed in that same vlog that I just referenced, and this is volume 3 of Ima Koi, Now I'm in Love. The author is Ayuko Hatta, and this is volume 3 of this series, but it's basically about this young couple, they're high school, 16, 17, right around there, kids, girl and a boy, who she's like, hey, I like you. He's like, okay, cool, let's date. And so this is just a continuation of their blossoming relationship and their little romance. It's a manga. It's high school, young adult. It was fine. This one kind of explores the two of them going to the cultural festival and then going on a couple dates, and the main female character gets a job, and it was perfectly fine. I don't feel very invested in this series at all. I feel like in this volume there was the introduction of a third character who is an upperclassman guy who I think might potentially down the line be a source of jealousy for our main male character. And I don't think that they're going to go all the way to love triangle. Maybe they will. I don't know. It's fine. This volume is fine. You can hear more about it in that vlog that I already referenced, but I don't care so much about these characters that I want to even pick up the next volume of. I actually do think I have it checked out from the library, but I just don't really care that much about this series. I'm just not that interested in this young adult romance. So I was kind of struggling. I wanted something that I thought that I would for sure really enjoy. So I started Ravensong by TJ Klune, which is the second book in the Green Creek series. Realized that I actually just wanted to reread Wolfsong before I dove into Ravensong. So I read Wolfsong. That was the third book that I finished in August, and this was a reread for me. Now, this is one of my like top favorite books. I think I have talked about it in a couple different videos. I'll link something up in the cards for when I first read it in 2020, 2021, somewhere right in there. And Wolfsong is the first book in the Green Creek series, and it follows our main character of Oxnard from the time, I think the book opens when he's like 12, and a lot of action, and then we kind of like speed through his life over the next like at least probably 12 to 15 years. 12 to like 10 years, maybe 10 to 12 years. Because I don't know. I can't remember. Time is hard. We follow him a little bit as a kid and sort of get a little bit of his backstory. And this is a paranormal romance, male sort of childhood friends situation. Now, some people like don't like TJ Klune. Some people think that this book is kind of gross because the love interest is Joe, who Ox meets when he is 16 and Joe is 10, and so like there's kind of this age gap, and like they knew each other when they were kids, and like they start having feelings when Joe is 17, and so like okay, I don't think that it comes across as gross in the book because they are best friends and because there's this whole like werewolf situation happening element, sort of fated mates essentially. But this book is, in my opinion, jam packed with emotion and feeling, because I think that Ox is maybe like autistic coded or something, and he as a character is just absolutely so honest and vulnerable and like raw, and it's just so easy to be in his head that it just makes it like all my guards are down throughout the entire book. So every feeling he has, I have, and it just makes me so immersed in the story. So this was a beautiful reread, and I was glad to have reread it, and I am still working on Ravensong. So didn't manage to make any actual progress in that series this month, but because I reread the first book. But that was my favorite read of the month, and it was a reread, but is a male paranormal romance that I would recommend, and I would really like to actually continue the series. So that's happening, hopefully. The fourth book, somewhere in the middle of the month here, I did DNF Heavyweight by Solomon J. Brager. The subtitle for this is A Family Story of the Holocaust, Empire, and Memory. This was a selection that had been chosen for a book club that I'm in. It's a graphic memoir, and as you can maybe guess by the subtitle, it deals a lot with sort of family trauma and the Holocaust, and the author's identity with how they reflect on their religion. I think I talked about this earlier in the month in another video, because I was like really saying that I wasn't sure that I wanted to finish it, and I did not. I just felt that structurally this story was not polished or was not cohesive in a way that I was engaged with or enjoying. It felt like the author was doing a bunch of research on their family and on history, and then it was just kind of dumping all of this onto the page. It just kind of felt disjointed. It felt that there was times when they were talking about this topic, and then suddenly they were like, oh, side note, side quest, and then you'd kind of start going down this track, and then they would just jump right back to here, and that would be okay, but like they sometimes wouldn't even jump right back to where they were. They would just jump over there, and it was just, there was like info dumps and like whole paragraphs of quotes of like, let me talk about this prominent philosopher of the time. And so I was not interested in this person's family, like honestly. And there is a like boxing sort of theme that's supposed to tie it together, and I don't care about that. So I just felt disengaged and was struggling with how this book was put together. And so I ended up DNFing Heavyweight. And back to the books that I finished, the fourth book that I finished was The Night Swim by Megan Goldin, and this is a mystery thriller. And I feel like a few years ago I was hearing a lot of good buzz about this book, and like it was perfectly mid. Like I was really honestly expecting a lot more. I listened to the audiobook, which it does have elements of sort of production value, essentially, because in The Night Swim, our main character is Rachel. She is a investigative journalist who has a podcast, who is like super, super, super famous, apparently, like a household name level of podcaster, who has done 2 seasons of her show where she is talking about cold cases or unsolved crimes, and whether or not people are innocent, and she does some digging. And this book opens with our main character Rachel going to cover a current and active trial that is about to start, and she wants to like put you in the jury box, all of her listeners to the podcast, and so she's following this trial. That's like 50% of the book. And then the other half of the book is that while she is in this town that is preparing for and then starting this trial, which is a trial of a young man who has been accused of raping a young woman, that's the trial. She also has gotten word there's someone who's local who is asking for help with regards to investigating her sister's death from 25 years ago, which was ruled as an accident, but the sister who's asking for help is like, no, I'm pretty sure my sister was murdered. So Rachel is kind of pulled to do also some investigating on this old case from 25 years ago. So there are interspersed sort of current times that are talking about the trial and sort of what Rachel is doing while she's doing investigating. There are all these messages and letters and emails, etc., from Hannah, who is asking for help about her sister's death from long ago. And there are interspersed like podcast episode transcripts where she is communicating about the trial and about just thoughts and feelings about the justice system throughout the whole book. I was interested enough to read the whole thing. I did kind of want to know how both things were resolved. I just felt that structurally there was like, it was just not great. I felt like in the trial portion of things, it was just kind of like dragged out for a really long time. And this did the whole like trope where our investigator manages to figure something out that nobody else spotted, and like everything, she completely changes the way the case rules and whatever. And it was just kind of like the second that was even brought up in the first case, I was like, well, what about that? And then like it wasn't brought up again for like 60 pages, and I was like, well, man, it just must have been some weird detail. And then they were like, actually, that was an important detail, and Rachel's the only one who picked up on it. And I was like, no, that's a giant plot hole that doesn't really make any sense. So I was kind of underwhelmed with that portion of things. And then also the investigate, like Hannah being this character who's asking for help and yet is only like leaving these mysterious notes and like kind of creepy. And then like it just, that never felt like it was really had good payoff for me. Like I wanted there to be more of a mystery around Hannah, and then like it just didn't make any sense as to why Hannah was just leaving these half-written letters to Rachel, and it was infuriating. And then Rachel was investigating, and there were these breadcrumbs from her investigation and from Hannah's letters to kind of try to point to who might have been responsible for the situations that were going down 25 years ago when Hannah's sister was dying. But like there wasn't enough information presented in the book for you, the reader, to be like, oh, I think it might be that guy. Because I thought what they were going to do was going to be like, oh, it could be the lawyer. And then you think, oh, no, it's not the lawyer. Oh, it could be the sheriff, or it could be that guy, or it could be this guy. And like there was a bunch of main male characters who were like the right age and who had been around at the right time, who could potentially have been the suspect, but you don't get enough information to ever make educated guesses or like have official suspicions. You're just kind of like left hanging a bunch, in my personal opinion. So I was underwhelmed, and the actual like podcast production part was a fun element in the audiobook, but in reality, no one would listen to a 3-minute episode of a podcast that's just like, so what do you think about the justice system? And I was just kind of like, okay. So for me, The Night Swim, meh. I think it's gonna be really forgettable ultimately down the road. And the person that I was buddy reading with also agreed and felt that it was pretty underwhelming. So that was the 4th book, and the final book that I finished in August. It was also a reread, and this was For the Fans by Nyla K. This is a long book that is sort of a contemporary / sports romance, male romance. I read 3 out of 5 books from August were male romances. Wonder what that says about me. But anyway, For the Fans is actually stepmother smut. It really is. It's smut. The premise is that these two main characters, Avi and Kyron, the book opens when they're like 15 or 16, and their parents, who are both single, start dating, and they become a family, and so they all have to move in together, and the guys are both like 16 and are very different from each other and don't get along well, and ultimately down the road they don't have really like much of a brotherly relationship. We don't really see any of this time from the time that they're like 16 until they go off to college and like what's really going on, other than they kind of annoy each other essentially. And then they both end up going to the same college, and then when they are like 20 and midway through college, the financial situation at home falls apart. And so basically the parents are not going to be able to afford to pay for the boys' college anymore. And so the boys are both responsible suddenly for coming up with a lot of money if they want to stay in school and have housing and pay for food, etc. So they're kind of scrambling and trying to figure out what they can do to get money quick. And ultimately they start an OnlyFans. Or one of the guys starts an OnlyFans and is making good money, but realizes he can make more money with collaborations. And ultimately, the two guys who are like stepbrothers are collaborating together for the fans. And throughout the course of this book, feelings develop. This is really like somewhat of a, I don't want to say far-fetched, because probably this is like, whatever, they need money. Okay, this is how they're going to do it. There's somewhat of a far-fetched setup, but then they, basically the rest of the book is just like a whole bunch of slowly escalating sex scenes strung together. And then like midway through the book, they're like, oh my God, I have like feelings, and how they deal with those. And so it's pretty long. It's very smutty. The writing is like not great. The relationship development is also not great. It's like mostly just sex, and then they kind of decide halfway through that they're like, oh, actually, like, I have feelings. And I'm like, okay, you haven't had any conversations other than like yelling at each other or sexual content, but okay, sure. I guess we, the reader, are supposed to believe that you had these great relationships from, when you were raised as siblings, or not raised, but, living as siblings years ago. So, you want something smutty? You want something mildly taboo? Sure. Right at the very end, I did not remember this. I remembered like the reason. It's like one of them has some trauma from their past, and I remembered like what that was. But there's like kind of 2 or 3 conversations about like God and religion and like how God loves you and that kind of stuff at the end that was like kind of weird and like felt somewhat shoehorned in like in a vaguely like go to church kind of message that was kind of weird at the end. So yeah, to me, like, I was there for the smut. I'm not gonna lie, I was there for the smut, and there was plenty of it in this 540 page book. So there you go. There are my 5 finished titles in August and the 1 DNF from August. So yeah, it was overall perfectly fine. I don't really have anything further to say. I still have, as of this time of me recording, which is September 2nd, happy Labor Day, I have, I think, like 4 or 5 books that I'm like in the middle of, Ravensong, a couple other ones, and I would really like to I want to either just drop them or finish them. And I would really like to finish them, but I also have a whole bunch of stuff that just came in through the library. And I've just been throughout the whole month of August feeling like I'm kind of in a slump a smidgen. Nothing is sounding super amazing. So I want to just really mood read for the next little bit and allow my feelings and joy in reading to help me push through this slump. So let me know if you have recommendations. It is like Sapphic September, and I would like to read a couple Sapphic books in September. I would be open to any other kinds of September, sci-fi September. I'm not really sure what other things are going on in September, but some of the projects that I had planned for August have not happened. So there you go. Thanks so much for listening to this long rambling wrap up, and let me know if you've read any of these books or if you have any recommendations down in the comments. Thanks so much for listening and sticking around, and don't forget to like and subscribe and do all those things, and I'll see you next time. Bye!